This mother gave everything she had, preparing an entire cart of dowry for her daughter. Today is the wedding day of the girl Agnes, and with the help of her younger brother, they struggled along mountain roads for 5 full hours just to deliver the dowry to the church. The men used a special ritual to place Agnes into the hands of her husband. Among all the wedding attire, the flower wreath on Agnes's head was the most beautiful. This wreath alone took her 3 days to carefully weave by hand. As the joyful wedding music played, her mother-in-law removed the wreath, loosened Agnes's braids, and then tied a coarse cloth headscarf and apron around her. From this moment on, Agnes's girlhood ended, and she became a traditional housewife. Finally, the priest handed Agnes a small doll, symbolizing the responsibility of continuing the family bloodline that now rested on her shoulders. In the courtyard of her husband's home, everyone appeared joyful and content. Only Agnes stood there awkwardly, her eyes constantly searching for her husband. But when night fell, her husband remained in an intimate embrace with another man. Although Agnes felt uneasy inside, she did not dare step forward to stop them. The husband's close friend looked deeply distressed, as if he could not bear to part with Agnes's husband. On the wedding night, Agnes dreamed of her husband's tenderness, and she lay down early to wait for him. But when her drunken husband returned to the bedroom, he collapsed onto the bed and fell asleep instantly. Thinking of her mother-in-law's expectations, Agnes moved closer on her own, only to be met with a harsh scolding from her husband. Agnes assumed he was simply drunk and lacking desire, so she did not think too deeply about it. Yet at dawn the next day, she woke to find her husband gone, and she went out searching everywhere. Having just married into the family and unfamiliar with everything, she walked while asking people along the way. Guided by 2 little girls, they passed through a forest, where a massive tree caught Agnes's attention. On a poster was an eerie woman, appearing to be standing trial. What Agnes did not know was that not long before she married into the village, a woman there had killed her own child with her own hands. Believing that confessing before God would earn divine forgiveness, she was instead exposed by the villagers. In this very forest, that woman was executed by the villagers, her head and limbs severed. When Agnes finally found the place where her husband and mother-in-law worked, her mother-in-law deliberately made things difficult for her, assigning her heavy labor meant only for men. At lunchtime, Agnes imitated her mother-in-law and distributed meals to the workers. A strong man pleaded with her. On the way home after work, Agnes's husband remained silent, and the two walked like complete strangers. Every day Agnes worked until late into the night, yet her mother-in-law continued to find faults with her at every turn. What troubled Agnes the most was that for months on end, her husband would turn his back to her the moment they lay down. Every night, in the sound of her husband's snoring, Agnes cried silently to herself. After marriage, if a woman has no children, she will face condemnation from everyone around her. She even begins to believe that all of this is her own fault. She goes to the church to pray, begging God to grant her a child. But Agnes's mother-in-law often deliberately pokes at her deepest pain. When they go together to wash clothes by the river, the mother-in-law points at a woman who is washing clothes and says, "That woman married into the village more than 3 years ago and has never become pregnant. She must have been cursed by God, and no one in the village is willing to associate with her." A chill runs through Agnes's heart, and she becomes deeply afraid that her life will end up just like that woman's, rejected everywhere she goes. In order to make herself seem more valuable, Agnes always goes to the bathhouse early, braving the freezing cold to wade into the icy lake to catch fish. The thick mud makes every small step painfully difficult. Yet in front of the villagers, her husband pretends to feel sorry for her and steps forward to stop her. For their poor family, catching fish is one of the few ways they have to survive. Even women who are 8 months pregnant must stay soaked in the water all day long, just like the men. One ordinary late night, urgent knocking comes from the door of Agnes's home. As villagers arrive to inform her husband, it turns out his close friend could not let go after the woman he loved married someone else, and he chose to end his own life. However, in their beliefs, taking one's own life means the soul cannot reach heaven. The priest repeatedly lists his sins and prevents the villagers from burying the man, so the people abandon his body in the wilderness, leaving it to be consumed by wild animals roaming the mountains. As winter passes and spring arrives, the fields await planting, and every day Agnes follows her husband to work at the landowner's pasture. Even during her menstrual period, she does not rest for a single day, but the monthly sight of blood feels to her like a mark of shame, and she grows increasingly fearful of her mother-in-law's gaze. When a pregnant woman asks Agnes at lunchtime for an extra piece of bread, saying she needs nourishment for 2 people, this time, Agnes does not hesitate. She directly refuses the pregnant woman. The mother-in-law's cruelty and her husband's long-term neglect push Agnes to the edge of emotional collapse. Yet she dares not express any joy, anger, sorrow, or happiness. When she can find no outlet for her pain, she secretly goes to the back mountain and screams at the top of her lungs in the thorny forest. The sharp thorns cutting into her skin and piercing her tongue are the only sensations that make her truly feel she is still alive in this world. One afternoon as Agnes returns home, she hears her mother-in-law's complaints outside the door.
Siehst du nicht, dass das so beblätter wird? Gleich drin schon.
Der hiesige Herr dazu. Was das soll, Kinder. Alle Kinder.
That night, Agnes walks alone through mountain paths in the darkness for an entire night before reaching her mother's home. But when she sees her mother and younger brother, she does not want to disturb them, so she falls into a deep sleep inside her mother's pigsty. It is not until her brother goes to feed the pigs at noon that he discovers his sister. Before she even enters the house, her brother tells her that she has already married out, and this is no longer her home. Yet Agnes quietly sits under the eaves of her mother's house, unwilling to return to her husband's side. At noon, Agnes's husband comes looking for her.
Vi gehen heim jetzt.
Ich kann nicht.
Kim,
Na, bitte.
komm, wir gehen jetzt. Geh. Komm jetzt.
Ja, lass mich bitte los.
Komm mit jetzt. Steh auf halt. Hilf mir. Geh. Komm mal. Das Teufel packt dich. Hör auf jetzt. Teufel nochmal.
But after returning to her husband, Agnes loses the vitality she once had. She lies in bed all day, unwilling to do anything and unwilling to speak. When the family's livestock fall ill, the mother-in-law blames Agnes for it. What they do not know is that Agnes is already suffering from severe depression. No matter how fiercely her mother-in-law scolds her, she remains completely unmoved. Agnes's husband hears from the priest that threading a needle through Agnes's skin and pulling the rough twine back and forth while she is in a dazed state can drive the demons out of her body through pain. As a result, a mark appears on Agnes's neck, and the wounds at both ends of the string never truly heal. One day, as Agnes wanders by a small river, she hears the sound of a baby crying not far away. Clothes are placed beside the infant, with no adults around, making it obvious that the baby has been abandoned. Agnes believes this is a gift from God, and because she longs so desperately for a child, she takes the baby home. But as soon as she reaches the doorway, her mother-in-law mocks her endlessly, saying that since she cannot give birth, adopting a child will only make her a laughingstock in the village. Agnes's husband also strongly opposes the idea.
Es hat so gerät und jetzt schon.
Du kannst ja nicht einer das Kind wegnehmen. Bring's zurück, Kim. Geh.
Perhaps this baby could have been Agnes's only lifeline, yet her last hope is extinguished as well. After putting the baby down, she hides beneath a rock and listens to the baby's cries, and in that moment, her world feels completely empty of attachments. In the days that follow, Agnes's condition appears even worse. While her husband spends his days indulging himself outside and finds another male companion, he shows no concern for Agnes at all. When Agnes begins to have thoughts of ending her own life, fearing she will not reach heaven, she repeatedly pulls on the twine around her neck. The intense pain does nothing to ease her suffering, so she opens the insect powder stored in the house. From morning until night, she continuously swallows the powder into her stomach. It is not until evening that Agnes's husband notices something is wrong. Knowing she may not survive the night, Agnes begs her husband to fetch the priest, as she needs God's forgiveness so she can reach heaven after losing consciousness. Unfortunately, the priest happens to be away that day. After returning home, her husband forces the insect powder out of Agnes's mouth by hand. The next day, Agnes's husband carries her weakened body and prepares to send her back to her mother's home. When she was married, her mother prepared an entire cart of dowry for Agnes. Yet when she is sent back, all her belongings amount to nothing more than a single bag of coarse linen clothes. The bright and lively young girl transforms into a hollow shell with no thoughts of her own in just 2 short years. Agnes sleeps on her mother's bed for 3 days and 3 nights before finally waking up. After getting up, she appears much clearer in mind. She washes her body, then sits quietly alone in the empty house, as if making a major decision. In order not to end up abandoned in the wilderness like her husband's close friend, Agnes chooses a dark path. She lures an innocent young boy to a secluded place, pretending that she needs him to guide her way. When the boy is completely unguarded, Agnes takes his life. After doing this, she goes to the church and, just like the village woman who once killed her own child, confesses before the priest.
Ich wollte eine gute Frau sein für meinen Mann. Ich hab's nicht geschafft. Ich hab auch Rotzengift geschleckt. Ich hab alles Schöne hab ich vergiftet mit meinen verrückten Gedanken. Ich war so hart. Ich hab gewusst, mir kann keiner helfen. Und es tut mir so leid, dass ich die Geburt umgebracht habe. Ich hab mir gedacht, er ist ja ein Engel und er muss keine Sünden mehr begehen auf der Welt. Er kann ja lesen. Himmelmutter, bitte verstoß mich nicht in die Hölle.
The next day, a new execution notice appears in the forest near the village. The villagers bind Agnes with cowhide and drag her into the forest. Amid the villagers' curses, Agnes walks numbly toward the place of execution, the innocent girl who once looked forward to marriage and trusted in life. Under harsh religious teachings, a cold and distorted marriage, and long-term repression and isolation, never truly fought back, and her mind gradually collapsed step by step. Driven by a desperate desire to die, she walks down this extreme path of self-liberation.
Wir uns freuen. Grüße